Hello creeps! Andy here. Today I have my March reading wrap up. These are the books that I read this month, right here. And yeah, we're just gonna go through and talk about them all. You guys know the drill. We do this every month. Let me know what books you guys read this month, what your favorite books, your least favorite, all that kind of stuff. Maybe at the end of this video, we'll do my favorite and least favorite of the month. I don't think we've ever done that. Anywho, let's get started. The first one that I read was Foe by Ian Reid. This one was actually sent to me by one of you. I have a whole pile of books right over here that you guys sent to me, which is so very nice. So I'm trying to get through that while getting through. I'm just drowning in books. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but now I have 4 book clubs. I'm just stretching it a little bit. Anyways, this is about a man who shows up at an old farmhouse. He says that there's a man and a woman living there. He says that the husband has been selected to potentially go to outer space. And so if that does happen, then they'll be seeing more of each other. He'll be coming by and kind of helping them through the whole process because the wife will have to stay at home and he's going to go on some like grand mission in outer space. You know, there is a book that it reminds me of, but I feel like if I say what it is, that it might ruin what the book is. But anyways, I was very focused on the sci-fi, the outer space part of the book, like those elements, that the meaning of the book almost slipped by me. I feel like it's definitely predictable, but I liked the ideas that it discussed about marriage, how important it is in being your own person, not being there solely for someone else's purpose, for someone else's enjoyment, for someone else's wants, and living the life that you desire as well. It's 100% a slow burn, and the plot doesn't fully pick up to like page 90, and it is a short book. So there's not a whole lot going on. It's mostly just them at the farmhouse and kind of dealing with the husband potentially being sent off to space. So it is a slow burn and it is a very short book. So keep that in mind if you want something. Don't think that this is going to be like super action-packed or, crazy entertaining the whole time, because it is a pretty slow burn. That being said, I feel like this writer has a really, really great way of making everything feel eerie without knowing why it feels eerie. There's not anything that's necessarily happening for you to go, oh gosh, what's going on here? But just the writing, you're like, something's off, something's weird, something is strange here. And I really enjoyed that part of the whole book. So let me go to my ranking here. Foe. I rated this one a 3.7. I felt like it was interesting commentary, and I liked kind of the meaning below the surface, but it wasn't anything crazy, and it was definitely a slow burn. So that's what I rated this one. Next, I read The Wasp Factory by Ian Banks, 2 Ians in a row. That's kind of funny. And this one is about a little boy who lives with his dad, and he is just a menace. Like, he's just running around killing rabbits, blowing them up, just not doing nice stuff. He's wow, he's an interesting one. His name's Frank, and oh yeah, and he's just 16. Oh my god, I didn't realize he was 16 because he's like going to bars, drinking with friends and stuff. Anyway, his brother was like setting dogs on fire and got put in an institute, and his brother has escaped, and so the whole book he's like getting closer and closer to home, and he doesn't know what to expect once his brother has reached the home. This was my favorite line in the book. It's a quote on the back. It says, "That's my score to date, 3. I haven't killed anyone for years and don't intend to ever again." It was just a stage I was going through. The thing about this one is it didn't really feel like, I understand why people label it horror. Am I crazy, or is this an anti-war book? I don't know. There's like bombs and talk of wars. I don't know if I read this the way other people read it. And I get that there are weird things that happen in it, and sort of this like transgressive fiction that does typically happen more in settings that I feel like we would push more towards horror, or these characters who are kind of on the outskirts of society that do pop up a lot in more horror books. So I get it, but at the same time, I feel like this is not This is not at all what I was expecting. I get that there are horror elements in there, but I felt like this was more like an anti-war book. I also would say that if you're gonna read this book, try not to read it through the lens of this day and age. I think that you'll get a different interpretation that I don't think the author was intending. That would just be my only caveat. But I didn't really write that many notes on this. The only thing that I wrote was that the father in this book, this was the most disturbing thing for me. I mean, I probably shouldn't say that because there's a lot of messed up stuff in this book, but the father, he's homeschooling Frank, and he tells him before he's able to go and learn things on his own, go to the library and question what his father's saying, he'll tell them one word means something else. So for example, he told him that fellatio is a character in Hamlet, and this was one of the most fucked up parts of the book for me. I was just thinking about how messed up that was to have someone be solely reliant on you for information, and for you to be able to teach, or have to teach them about the world, have to teach them about things, and you're purposely just messing with their head. That was so messed up. But yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff between father and son, and I guess just family in general. And I feel like I would definitely have to read this a few more times to fully grasp a lot of the stuff going on in here, or how I truly felt about the book. But I'm curious how you guys feel about this one. When you read it, were you like, oh, that's a horror book? Or were you like, oh, something else is going on here? Very curious. Okay, next I read, oh, the rating. I think I rated this one about the same. I rated this one a 3.6, so pretty close. Next I read Earthlings by Sayaka Murata, and this one was actually the book club pick that my friend picked for us to read this month. This was a strange book, I'm not gonna lie. This is about a woman who thinks that she is an alien. Other people that don't kind of fit into society, she deems them aliens as well. She has a pretty tough family life. Her whole family is just a bunch of a-holes, to be honest. And the story is about like sexual trauma that isn't acknowledged. Societal norms, pressures to fit in, to get married, to have kids, to kind of follow these traditional steps, or be seen and feel like an outsider. The hedgehog on the cover of this book, I don't have this one because my friend's borrowing it right now, but the hedgehog I think on the cover represents kind of like childhood and the death of innocence. And you see it and you're like, I've seen this book around, and I was like, oh, that must be a comedy book. I can't imagine picking it up and being like, what the heck is going on? The end is disturbing, but really the entire book is disturbing, and it's interesting how we gloss over some of the traumatic, disturbing things because they are more common in society. And I think at the end, you'll probably focus more on the ending and be like, that was such a messed up ending. But really, if you stop to think about it, the things that happen to these characters are just as fucked up. It was an interesting ride. I really did enjoy this one. And it was weird. It was weird and gross and horrible and sad. And I liked it. I gave this guy 4 stars. And yeah, if you just want something a little strange and pretty messed up, but also, I mean, with every book I recommend, I'm sure you guys know, I'm going to be talking about messed up books, so obviously do your own research before. But yeah, I liked this one. Next one. Oh gosh, I'm a little nervous to talk about this. I read Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis, and this is a very popular book. And people love this book. It was made into a show or something. People love it. So please forgive me, but I did not. This book was not for me. And maybe I'm just too cynical, honestly. And I don't know what that says about me. But this book just wasn't it. So it's about this woman. I don't even remember her name. Elizabeth Zott. Oh, Stephen King even said, witty, sometimes hilarious, the catch-22 of early feminism. Oh, okay. It's about this woman named Elizabeth. It takes place in the 60s. It follows her life as a scientist and kind of the trials and tribulations that she experiences being a woman in society at that time. Oh, gosh. Okay. To me, though, to me, it was a very reduced, boiled down version of sexism and inequality. Every man she run into is like, but you're just a big dumb woman. And it felt to me like a caricature of sexism. here's the thing. She's a scientist. It would have been really cool to discuss things that were happening in the 60s that were maybe a little bit less caricature-like how at that time in medicine, tests were only being run on men, and so they didn't even know that women's symptoms were different than men's for a long time, you know? Like these are serious implications of sexism that are just, I don't know. It just felt like there are so many things that you could talk about with inequality, with sexism. This just felt like a caricature to me. There's also a talking dog in it, which, don't get me wrong, I've read plenty of books with talking dogs in them, but when you're discussing a book about feminism, I'm just like, why is this fucking dog talking? What is happening? I don't know why, but I did not like this book at all. It also talked about, obviously, the difficulty of womanhood in the 60s, but a lot of the issues in the book still apply today. So it was, the moral of the story is like, well, just be yourself and everything will be great. And I'm like, but we're still dealing with those same issues however many years later. What do you mean? No, that's not the moral of the story. Why don't we write a book and spend 400 pages discussing the implications of sexism and like actually changing things than this just like cute, happy story about this, you know, quirky little scientist that, I don't know, becomes a famous, she becomes like a famous movie or TV show host where she cooks lunches. And here's the thing. It's cute, I get it, and I totally understand why women would read this book and maybe feel a little bit seen. There's a lot of discussion in here about how just being a homemaker or a stay-at-home mom, how those jobs are overlooked and they're not seen as anything important. And that is still true to this day. So I completely understand why women would read this book and feel seen and feel heard and be like, yes, this is important, you know? So I get it on some level, but to me, it just felt so reduced and boiled down. It didn't have, to me, any solution besides like, just be yourself and things will be great. But that's not really solving anything, you know? The main character is also like, well, everyone hates me because I refuse to get married. But then every other character in the book is like, oh, I got divorced. Oh, my wife left me. And that's fine. I don't know. It was weird. There's also multiple perspectives and sometimes in a single paragraph. So sometimes the writing kind of gave me whiplash. Guys, I don't know. Am I the only one that disliked this book? Let me know your feelings. Really, leave them down below. If you loved this book or liked it or whatever, I am curious to know why. And maybe I am too cynical and maybe it's okay to just have a cute story and it doesn't have to be this like deep story. But I don't know, if you're going to take on a subject like feminism, especially in the 60s, you know, I felt like there could have been a lot more done. I will say I did enjoy that she had the pencil in her hair. That was my favorite part of the story. And I like the dog. I just didn't think he should talk. It's a little silly, but you know, whatever, man. Anyways, we all have our different views and opinions on books, so hopefully you guys don't hate me for disliking this one. I know a lot of people loved it, but I don't also think it's a surprise that this isn't a book for me. This I read for a book club, which I'm glad that I did. And I do usually like reading what's popular too, and I can usually understand why. That one just specifically wasn't for me, you know? It is what it is, but hopefully we're still friends, even if you loved it. Okay, the next book, oh, that one I rated 3 stars, but then I just realized that I also rated, Scum Manifesto. I rated that one 3 stars. They are not equal. So either Scum Manifesto is 2 stars or this one's 3.5 stars. I haven't decided yet. Next, The Color of Blood. This one is by Mona Kabani. This is about a man who can see kind of people's auras. He's a painter, and so he seeks out people that their auras are the color that he wants to use for his painting, and then he kills them and uses their blood in his art. Cool concept. And if that was just the entire story, I would have been down to follow that. It turned out to be more than that though. I liked that his eyes were different from other people's. He has different rods and cones, and so he can see things that other people can't. But this story was also more than just that. To me, it was more about I guess, just toxic relationships and always wanting more even if someone has given you everything, and also the implications of using someone in that way, and how it leaves both parties during the relationship and after. There's some interesting themes in here as well, like the changing after each relationship, life, death, metamorphosis. There's cycles, circles, Ferris wheels, infinity, the concept of blood, of you like physically using somebody's body as your own. And the chapters are sectioned off into I don't know anything about art, but I think these are terms in art. Yeah, like monochromatic and whatever. And then also the comparison to different painters. The main character is very egotistical, pretentious. He bothered me. I did not like him as a character, and I think that was the intention. But I loved the writing. It was really beautiful. It was really dark, and I would really like to read more from this author. But yeah, I thought this was just like an original, interesting story, just on the surface, a cool concept about using people's blood for your art, but then a little bit deeper, maybe a discussion on more toxic relationships. So yeah, really enjoyed that one. Next was just my Devil's Food Cake Do. It's my cozy mystery. You guys know. You know what that's about. I think I rated both of these 4 stars. Next up, Victorian Psycho. This was our book club book of the month. And guys, I really enjoyed this one. It's about I can't remember the word that they use in the Victorian era, but it's like a nanny. She comes in and watches over these kids, but she has ulterior motives. But this one, it felt more like an anti-love letter to the Victorian era. Like, we were talking about how a lot of times when period pieces are used in film or books, it's usually like a love letter to that time period. It's very romanticized, and that's not really how those periods were. Obviously, they dealt with a lot of horrible things too. And so I really loved the idea of a horror book being written in a place that was just surrounded by death, like the Victorian era. And you got to see, just with death, disease, infant mortality rate, just awful things happening in this time period. So it really did feel like an anti-love letter to the Victorian era. And I thought it was so unique. I really enjoyed that. I did like the writing. There's a lot of foreshadowing in here. Oh, I don't think I said this on the book club, but the first few chapters, it felt like Victorian chapters of Friends episode titles, like chapter 1, in which I arrive at Ensor House, like, the one where they go to Ensor or whatever, in which I meet my employers and I'm not terribly impressed. I'm like, this is the Victorian Friends episode of chapter names. Anyways, but I also think that she did a good idea researching the Victorian era, from the description of the house to the mummy parties to the horror stories around Christmas time to fainting spells to arsenic in the green items. There's just so much in here that I was like, oh, it's so nice. Also, like the annoying phrases that they use for women, like, oh, her uterus will fall out if she exerts too much energy. Just the ideas surrounding women of the time period. I just really enjoyed this one. I also loved the casual lore that she drops. I won't give much away, but this main character is a trip. Like, she'll just be outside and it'll start a new chapter and she'll be like, oh yeah, I'm sucking on a tooth. Is that my tooth? No, that must be someone else's tooth. And then she buries it and you never hear whose tooth it is. She is a trip, and I kind of adore her. There's a lot of humor in here too. This book had me laughing quite a bit. Oh yeah. So I wrote, it discusses like the fragility of women, classism, baby farming. I also loved that she wasn't this femme fatale character. A lot of books that have women as the killers in books, they have to be this like sexualized cool girl version. And they're not typically just like a normal everyday girl. They could be anyone. That's what this character was. She didn't have to be excessive in any manner. She was just a normal girl. Normal is a stretch, but an everyday type of girl. And I really liked that. I think it added a lot of interest to the character. And I didn't realize how many of the books where female characters are the killer how they have to be the cool girl. They have to be this like, you know, excessively interesting and intriguing and unique woman. There just aren't a lot of books where the main character is just an everyday woman who just happens to have a few screws loose. And so I really enjoyed that one. That one I gave I think I gave above 4 stars, didn't I? 4.25 stars. I really did enjoy that one. And that was another one where the more I thought about it, the more I liked it. And even now, the more I go back and think about it, the more I'm like, man, that book was so satisfying to read. I really did enjoy that main character. So that's what I thought about that guy. Next up, I read The Gracier by Kim Liggett, I don't know. This was a book club pick for my friends. I told you that I started a book club with a group of friends, a group of girls, and we have very, 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 very different reading taste. And so when I picked this one up, I read the back and I'm like, oh, this is not going to be a book for me. And oh boy, was I wrong. This is the best book that I've read this year. This is the highest rated book that I've read this year. I loved this book. And I read the back, I'm like, oh, this is not going to be for me. Don't judge a book by its cover. This is why I enjoy reading popular books. This is why I enjoy book clubs, because you get introduced to books. I would have never in a million years picked this book up by myself and read it. And I am so glad that I did. I freaking loved this book. It was so good. You know what? My battery is gonna die. Let me change the battery before I get into all this because I have a lot to say. And we're back. This book is like a dystopian society. When the girls become women in this town, they are banished from the town, outside of the town walls, for a year to release their magic so that when they come back, they can be married off to men and not be a danger to themselves or people in the town. I know, it's crazy. So it's about this girl. She is in her gracier. She is being banished from the town. And so we follow her through what that looks like. You're not allowed to discuss the gracier with anybody, so nobody really knows what to expect, what's going on. You can't talk about anything. There are like poachers on the outside that are hunting the girls, so they have to be very careful about that. And then there are people who live outside of the walls as well that they have to be conscientious of. This book is also about inequality and things like that. It's definitely discussed in the town. But the thing that I really loved about this book was how it discusses how women treat other women. And I don't know that I've ever read a book like that. And what I loved about it is it wasn't like, oh, she's a bitch, look at her, she's mean to the women. It was like, this is how women treat women because of how they were raised, because of this, how society taught them, because of where they live. And I thought it was just a really interesting way of looking at it, because I do think that a lot of the times women portray other women as competition or something to be envious of rather than supportive of. And I do think that that is kind of how we're raised in a way. And like, how cool would it be if that wasn't an issue and we could all just be friends and be supportive of each other? So I really loved the way that that was discussed in the book. That was my favorite part of the book. But there's also some horror in here for sure. There's like cutting off ears, cutting off fingers. There's some mystery in here. Obviously you have this idea of magic. There's, I guess I won't go into too much else, but this has a little bit of everything. I would highly recommend this, especially for the ladies. I don't know how guys would feel about this book. I mean, obviously I would never not recommend a book to you, but I do think it's an important book to read as a woman, and just to kind of analyze how women think about other women and how women treat other women and how we can change that, you know? So anyways, loved this book. It made me sob. There was, at 4 in the morning, there was a time where I was like, oh God, what is going on? I loved this book. I really did. I gave this one a 4.5. A fantastic read. Let me know if you guys have read this. I'm very curious. Next, I read this guy. This is We Are Watching by Allison Galen. And this seemed like a really cool concept for a book. It's about a husband, wife, and daughter. They're going to drop the daughter off at college. They get into a car accident. The husband dies. And then they start realizing that maybe it wasn't an accident. And it relates to the wife's, sorry, I don't know if my husband's home or, Yeah, I think that might be him. It relates to the wife's dad's band from back in the day, and it relates to a book that she wrote in her youth. So it's like a cool concept to begin with, but it's definitely deeper than that. This is kind of the political social commentary that I like reading. It's more about conspiracies and hatred and a social commentary on how quickly things can get out of hand, how people can believe things with zero proof or very little proof. It also, I think, discusses the dangers of the internet, how you could be stuck in an echo chamber where you'll find anyone who believes what you believe, and then that's just all that you're shown. How you can find the truth and then something that disproves the truth kind of with one Google search. It's an interesting read, and so I really did like it for that. I also did enjoy how the quote-unquote good guys in the book go through the same phases that the quote-unquote bad guys in the book go through too. Like, they definitely go through paranoia, not trusting people, not trusting facts, questioning everything. And so it was like how this affects everyone kind of thing, which I enjoy more when we're talking about social and political commentary, just kind of how we're all affected by things and not necessarily being like, you guys are evil, we're the good guys kind of thing. But anyways, the only thing I will say is the way that it's written, you don't really feel connected to the characters, especially with a book so emotional that deals with such high emotions, like losing a husband, fighting for your life, being so fearful. There's so many things in here that I wish we really got to connect with the characters about. But other than that, I did enjoy the read, and I did, like, this is, like I said, the kind of social and political commentary that I do enjoy reading. This one I rated a 3.8. I still enjoyed it, but the writing did throw me off. And then just real quick, the very last thing that I read, it was this novella called This Is Where We Talk Things Out by Caitlin Marceau? I don't know how to pronounce that. This one was just about a woman who goes to a cabin to try to work things out with her mother. They've always had a strained relationship, and it was fine. Like, it wasn't bad writing or anything like that. But it just wasn't really anything out of what I've read before. It didn't give me anything that other stories hadn't given me. It wasn't excessively gory. It wasn't excessively deep. It was just a story about, you know, the relationship between mother and daughter. I did enjoy it, but I would say it's not anything out of the ordinary in the horror genre. So those are my books. The highest rated book this month was The Gracier, followed close by with Victorian Psycho. And then my least rated book this month was Lessons in Chemistry. So I'm very nervous to post this and have people yell at me if they really like that book. But anyways, that's what I read this month. Let me know what you guys read, and I will see you soon with another horror video. Bye guys!